WanderingWinder with another game review video. Going over one of my own games. Hopefully, it's going to be the start of a series. Probably I'll have a disproportionate share of my own wins because I'm going to understand them better and I'm going to think they're more interesting. But I'm going to try to include both some wins and losses from me, but mostly interesting games and go over them kind of beat by beat and look at some strategy and some decision points and maybe some places where either myself or my opponent could have improved. I went first here, and yeah, let's look at the board. We have Expedition and we have Conquest. We have Young Witch here. The Bane is Masterpiece, so one of the worst Banes. There's Harvest and Fortune Teller and Knights, and I can't remember which knight was on top. Sorry about that. We have the peasant line. Apothecary is our non-terminal du jour. Uh, Royal Carriage as a village or throne room. Harvest, which is garbage. Patron, guide, horse traders. Um, so going first here, the Bane being so bad made me jump on to Young Witch. I think I'm going to actually go through this game twice. Once to just kind of give the general feel for what happened, and then a second time to look at some key decision points. So I went Young Witch Silver and just basically more or less played Young Witch Money. And my opponent went for Potion Peasant. And my thought was basically between the Peasant and you're going to want to gain other stuff. And well, I was thinking, I think at the time that the Conquest would help me because I want a lot of money. Masterpiece will help me. Young Witch, you're going to take a lot of curses because you don't want Masterpiece, or it's going to very much get in your way if you do take it. So the Masterpiece will be fine for my money plan. I'm going to be giving you a lot of curses. You see my Young Witch missed this shuffle here. I'm going to be giving you a lot of curses basically, and they're going to get in the way of your apothecary, and there isn't really great stuff to do with the peasant. Now there is apothecary patron kind of, but you're not going to be able to reveal that much. I think that's a thing. I think apothecary says reveal. Pretty sure it does. Anyway, um, so I get a second Young Witch on turn 4. My opponent starts picking up guides pretty soon here. Um, right, we could see that their peasant also missed, just like my Young Witch missed. So we're kind of even on that front. Um, here I hit 5 and take a couple silvers. They're going to continue to get guides and apothecaries and start moving their peasant up the line. Yeah, so let's zoom ahead a little bit for the on this first playthrough. Um, right here at this point, I've given out 4 curses. They're taking, an apothecary a turn or an expedition, which helps them out a bit. Um, and okay, eventually get a third Young Witch. I pick up a patron. I pick up a guide. Get some more masterpieces. I start conquesting a little bit. They're on a lot of curses. They have a teacher now, which they've just gotten. They're at 5 apothecaries. Got a couple of soldiers as they're starting to progress more things through that line. They have a royal carriage as well, which is going to help them build bigger eventually. I take another guide here. So what we get to happening is I start taking some conquests, and then I start provincing. And I start provincing pretty reliably. It's taken me a long time to start, but I've also dealt a huge amount of damage to my opponent. Curses are going to run. These things are low. Eventually he's going to stick plus card on Apothecary, I believe. He's going to guide stuff around. I am going to uh, continue to province basically reasonably reliably. And yep, so that's what's going to happen is I'm going to conquest in province. One of the other most turns, my opponent takes all the curses, but they also have plus card on Apothecary here, and they have 10 Apothecaries and some Royal Carriages to help them draw some Disciples. So they're starting to draw a lot of cards, and they have a couple of Horse Traders as well to give them extra buys. So they have a huge turn here, and they're able to triple province. But I still have a big lead because I have, well, I also have 3 provinces, but I have 6 VP chips from conquesting, and my opponent has 10 curses, and those 10 points are important. So I get the second to last province here, but my opponent is able to have another huge turn, and they don't have enough points except that Masterpiece and Conquest are on the board. So they get a big Masterpiece and then Conquest a couple of times to win by 4, emptying the silvers, which is important because it's the third pile. So that's the general outline of the game. They're able to just get to the point where they're having big turns soon enough. They have a couple of very big turns and use that to win the game. So yeah, I think my opponent plays at least pretty well in the beginning for the strategy they're choosing. Knights are not going to be very effective against either deck here, I don't think, unless it was a particularly good knight on the top, which I'm guessing it wasn't, probably. Like, it certainly wasn't the trashing one where my opponent would have gotten it. I don't think it was the discard attack one. It's probably like Vander or something, I don't know. Here already, I'm not sure about the second Young Witch, but maybe it's okay. This Masterpiece is fine for me. The third Young Witch here on turn 6, I don't think I like. This isn't the third Young Witch. This is the second Young Witch. No, this is the third Young Witch. Yeah, I don't think I like. I would have just rather had more silvers from a Masterpiece overpay, and I can get a Young Witch when I hit 4 again, or even Guide. I think is reasonable over the third Young Witch, but it's not the hugest deal. Here I hit 5 again. I'm consistently hitting 5 this game. Take some more Masterpieces, and then here I hit 5 again and I take a Patron, which I think is really bad. Patron I can draw dead. I'm not that likely to get Young Witches colliding, and even if they do, the Villager just doesn't do that much. I think just an overpay is probably in order here again. And because of the way that this game has gone, so something I need to note is that, well, the other thing I could be doing is expeditioning, right? Which is worth some definite consideration because it helps me either get bigger Masterpieces or, I don't know, various things. Basically, I think I need to look at, because Masterpiece Conquest is here, if the game goes very long, there's enough points to outscore me. So I want to either cut that possibility off by taking enough of the silvers that my opponent isn't going to be able to score enough, although then they can probably just score on provinces. So I think the real thing that I should be doing here is probably prioritizing like gold over conquest, and then in certain spots expeditioning and trying to drain the provinces fast enough. Big Masterpiece is better than gold, on 7 or early 8s probably, but yeah, anyway, we can see here I hit 5 and take a guide. Not a huge fan of that play. Again, I think Masterpiece overpay probably would have been better, and guide is good on 3 or 4, but I mean, it's okay here where I have it as well, but I can draw some stuff dead now. Like here I draw the Patron dead, and that's pretty bad. If it were a silver, I could have conquested or taken a gold here. I take an expedition, which is perfectly fine, but the presence of expedition is probably also another reason why 3 young witches, too many young witches. here I hit 9 and take a big overpay, and I think that's good. This game is going to go long enough that getting 6 silvers with a masterpiece is probably better than taking a province. My opponent, again, they have a couple of guides and they're spinning around as fast as they can to get to their travelers to get their draw up. Here I start conquesting. Yeah. So I have 6 here and I take a conquest. And, well, basically, the patron has been an utter disaster as I've drawn it dead a couple of times. If it were a silver here again, I would have, well, only one more money, but I could take a masterpiece overpay on 7. Um, 6 here, like conquest is okay, but the conquest points aren't really going to save me in the end here. So I think gold is just probably better. Yeah, 7 masterpiece for a big overpay. And then 5, I take another guide, and I really don't like that. I think this should have either been an expedition or an overpay. And yeah, another 7. So at this point, I'm going to be hitting 7 a lot. It's not that unfortunate that I keep hitting 7 every time. It's just going to be something that happens in this kind of deck. I have a lot of silver, but it takes a whole lot of silver to be able to actually like be provincing with any kind of consistency. Um, Now at this point, the curses are getting low, and they're definitely going to run. I could try to make the silvers run and set up a pile out potentially that way, but it's a little bit tricky, especially because I don't have that many points. My opponent still doesn't have very much draw set up. They have 5 apothecaries, and they don't have well they do have their teacher down now, and they can call it to put it on the apothecary. So they start to really draw here. So we can see they end up with 7 money in a potion here, which is okay, but even this is not great. Um, and they take another apothecary, so now they have a lot of apothecaries, which are really going to help them draw a lot. I keep hitting 6 and 7 and getting conquest. There's a carriage, and there's a peasant, which is plus buy for them. Yeah, they want to keep the peasant because they want the plus buy. Um, Here I finally start breaking into 8 and get province. And my opponent starts having very, very big turns. Although, even saying very, very big, it ends up as kind of 8 and 2 buys. They get a horse traders and another apothecary. They're not drawing quite their deck, but they're getting kind of close. And at this point, the writing's probably on the wall for me that I'm just too dead. I haven't done enough. I think the patron was a really big mistake. I think the third young witch wasn't good. And yeah, it just turns out probably my opponent's strategy is better and they can just absorb all those curses. Maybe you could play some kind of a hybrid strategy. But what you'll see here is, so they have the big turn here. Soon? Not this turn, I guess. Get another conquest. Yeah, it's this turn. They start to have very big turns, but I'm just still not doing enough. My own game plan never developed enough. And here they get their big turn. And yeah, basically I've been in a little bit of a rock and a hard spot, but because there's both, like it could have been focusing more for provinces or it could have been going more for silvers. But because my opponent can decide to score either way, I'm kind of in a difficult spot because I can't cover both of them. Um, yeah, anyway, at this point in the game, somewhere around here, my opponent has a teacher, but it's not down. Um, they haven't played it yet. I have given out 7 curses. I feel like I'm in good shape. But a couple of key mistakes have really hurt me, and I'm not sure what strategy is best here. But so I felt very ahead by now, even though I don't have any provinces yet. I felt like my deck was pretty decent, right? I have 18 silvers and a few young witches to help sift. I'm going to be making 6 quite reliably. Not making 8 too often, but my opponent's deck I think is pretty bad. They have like no money other than their coppers, and they have 5 apothecaries and a teacher, and I just don't think their deck is doing much with 7 curses. But yeah, I think I really misplayed, and I should have made probably more judicious use of expedition and some different decisions on the guides and the patrons, things of that nature, and just tried to spike province enough to end the game, as opposed to what I did. Well, get a few huge masterpieces and then spike province, as opposed to what I did. Anyway, I'd love to know how you would play this board. If you think going for something like what I did is at all viable, if I make various decisions differently, if I would have a chance, or whether my opponent should just clean up because the game is going to last long enough and there's enough points available that they'll make it for sure anyway. Between guide and expedition and conquest, bailing them out because in the long game they'll be able to get enough draw from their apothecaries and they'll be able to get their teacher stuff going often enough. They have multiple tokens down by the end here. Um, yeah, so I'd love to know what you would think and what you think of the format. This game is very long. Probably the other games I'm going to review will mostly be shorter. Um, but yeah, this is Wandering Winder signing off with this game review.